And now with more on Israel's new earthquake response plan, emergency response specialist Moshe Chertoff. Moshe, thank you so much for being with us. Now, you've been researching disaster relief and response for decades. What do you think of Israel's new project?
First of all, thank you for having me back to ILTV. Shalom and marhaba to all of the viewers also. I'm very pleased to see any progress regarding our preparedness for earthquakes. Unfortunately, this plan, and by the way, I compliment the Prime Minister's office and the government and the National Emergency Authority for taking this on. It's very important. But unfortunately, what we're talking about again is the aftermath of the destruction. And even if we talk about preparing for the destruction with the Talma 38 plan to reinforce existing buildings that were built before 1980, what's going to happen until these construction
rebuildings
actually get into, we could, right now, here's the big shake. I mean, what are we going to do? Most people in this country, sorry for the
right.
drama here. Most of the people in the country have gotten instruction from the Home Front Command, which was changed about 6 or 7 years ago. Up until then, they instructed people more or less like everywhere else in the modern world, where most of the buildings are standard and can withstand heavy earthquakes, extreme earthquakes without total destruction. But all of a sudden they changed it to have us go running out of buildings. Now, in the last week, we just saw the perfect example of why not to do that. The first video that came out of Sichuan, where they had a 6.8 quake a few days ago, 4 seconds into the video in the street, you see everything shaking, trees are swaying, buildings are swaying, and the facade of an entire building. Here you see it on the left, the whole top floor crumbles and falls exactly opposite the exit of a building. If people in Israel follow the instructions of the Home Front Command and someone actually tried to rush outside of the building, they would have been crushed by all of that falling upon them. Therefore, this is what we're seeing here is the instructions for New Zealand, where it says drop, cover, hold. And that's very simple. It's practiced in, they have exercises every year throughout the entire Pacific Rim, the Ring of Fire, where they get constant earthquakes. And we're talking about in Israel, we're expecting a 7.5. I was in a 6.8 in Los Angeles in 1971. A few years after that, at my home in Los Angeles, they had a 7.2. That's very destructive, but 7.5 is just unbelievably strong. You see in this video what 6.8 does. So what I've been trying to do is I've been trying to get the government authorities to reverse the decision, go back to drop, cover, and hold, which everybody, it's so simple to teach, and we can, within a few million shekels, and within a month or two, the entire country can know exactly what to do to bring down the deaths. And we're projecting between 4,000 and 700 deaths in that first shake, and there will be aftershakes, and there are people who will be still caught in rubble and whatever. If you can protect yourself from all of that, if we can actually instruct people how to avoid being killed or really seriously injured, I think it would be worth our time. And I hope to get to the Knesset and bring that up.
So, and I know that you've been working opposite the Knesset, as you mentioned, for a long time. But do you see that this is a political move, perhaps, in light of the coming elections, or is that too cynical of a view?
I think that if we didn't do it and there was an earthquake, either right before the election or right after the election, questions would be asked. Why didn't you take care of this? You were the government. You're supposed to protect lives. You're supposed to protect the population here, all of the residents. So I don't look at it as something no one's going to say, oh, they're just trying to save lives because they want to get elected. I think that's not the case. And we have to have a plan also for what they're talking about, and that's reconstruction after the earthquake.
Right.
I know that in Los Angeles, the 7.2, there was a freeway which collapsed. Can you imagine driving along all of a sudden and there's a part of a freeway missing? So all of these things have to kick into gear immediately when there's the earthquake, and as quickly as possible. Now, even if they start building, it's 3 to 5 years before someone will have a new house to live in, a new building. And in the meantime, between 3 and 5 years from now, how many times could we go through that 7.5? No one can predict it. It can happen as soon as we finish this transmission.
So again, what needs to be done, and who is relaying this to the government? Because the government is saying that they want to get in line with the rest of the world. But if they're, as you mentioned, they're not teaching this simple plan that the rest of the world seems to be teaching.
I visited the Israeli Geophysical Institute in Lod, and I asked them those questions a few years ago. And they said that because there are so many ancient buildings in Israel and buildings built during the Turkish period or before, that they would prefer that more people get injured and we'll have less people die. So let's all run out of the building. But Israel in 2022 has high rises that are being built in Akko and in various peripheral and exterior cities that are going up 20 stories high. Do you really expect anybody to be able to get out of a building? I mean, that's the first thing you're supposed to do. Here you go. If you're even on the third floor, a major earthquake takes between 45 seconds and a minute. The minute and a half is like an eternity. So you will not make it out of a building. And unfortunately, if you do get out of a building, as you saw in Sichuan, horrible things can happen. The facades of many of our high-tech buildings have tremendous amounts of glass and metal that will come crumbling down. So I'm hoping to get to the committee for the subcommittee that takes care of earthquake preparedness and try to get them to at least investigate why Washington State told me that even if a building is going to collapse, almost for sure, still practice drop, cover, hold. Never try to leave a building. Don't try to run more than a couple of steps. You won't make it. In a 7.5, for sure not.
All right, Moshe, thank you again so much for joining us.
Thank you. Let's hope for the best.
Hi everyone, it's Emmanuel Kadosh. I wanted to invite you all to subscribe to ILTV+, where you can find our daily news and updates about Israel. And not only that, but live feeds, entertainment, our kosher food show, and so much more. Needless to say, your subscription to ILTV+ helps us grow and create more content while also supporting the state of Israel. Our app is available on all platforms and devices, so I'll see you guys there.